Now that we have prepared our player and our backgrounds, let us create our cloud spawners that are going to spawn initial clouds when the game starts. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to select the main camera and we're going to right click it and then create empty. So click on this create empty, and this is going to create an empty game object that's going to immediately be a child of our camera. So I can click on this drop down list and we can see this we can see this game object under the camera. I'm going to rename it to Cloud Collectors. So Cloud Collectors, and we're going to create two more, but as children of this Cloud Collectors game object. This is going to be our Cloud Collector, which we are going to position above, and this is going to be our Cloud Spawner that we are going to position below the camera. So first I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to go under Add Component, and I'm going to apply a box collider to both of them. And we see now that both of them have this box collider. I'm going to resize this box collider to the size of 10. And on the y-axis it can be 0.1 because we don't need it to be, well, a large like this or something like that. So simply 0.1 will do. And we need to set both of them to be triggers. So clicking on this is trigger, they are going to be triggers. And what this actually means is if, for example, we see our cloud. So the cloud is not set to be a trigger. If I run the game, we see that the player stands nicely on the cloud. If I were to set the cloud to be a trigger though, we're going to see the player falling through the cloud. So a trigger is also a collider, or, well, practically it is a collider, but a trigger, and a trigger will not be a solid body, meaning that other game objects that have colliders attached on them will be able to pass through it. But we are still going to detect collision, or we are going to be able to detect that collision. I'm also going to tag our cloud collectors. Clicking here, first select one of the collectors, and then you have this nice little cube near the name of our game object in the inspector panel, and you can click on that cube and you can select one of these icons. I'm going to select the orange one, and we see that it tags the cloud collector with that orange tag. I'm going to do the same thing for our cloud spawner and simply tagging them. We are also going to position them. As I said, cloud collector is going to be above, so he's going to be at 5.8 here, and cloud spawner is going to be at negative 5.8. Our cloud collector is going to collect our clouds. So when the game starts, we are going to create initial clouds and the camera will start going down. When cloud collector touches the cloud the same way as we see here, it's simply going to turn it off. And when our cloud spawner touches the last cloud that we have created here in the game, it will spawn new clouds. And we are going to see that through our code. Now what we need to do is we need to go in our scripts folder and create this cloud collectors scripts. And inside of it, I have a cloud collector and a cloud spawner script. I'm going to attach the cloud collector on cloud collector and cloud spawner. So let me just see. I attached, yeah, it's the right script. I thought that I have attached cloud spawner on cloud collector. Anyway, now I'm going to attach cloud spawner on my cloud spawner. So we have these two attached on the appropriate game objects. First, we are going to deal with our cloud collector because that script is very simple. What we are going to do is we are simply going to type here or create void on trigger enter 2D, which takes a collider 2D as an argument, and which I'm going to name target. This is the function that we are going to use when the collider is set to be a trigger, and we have set it here to be a trigger. So when the collider is set to be a trigger, this is the function that's going to be called when when any other game object with a collider touches our cloud collector. Then there's going to be a collision detection, and this function is going to be called immediately. Here what we are going to do, we are going to utilize this target, which is going to be the other game object that touches our cloud collector. So if, for example, we run the game and now I take the camera and I scroll it down, and our cloud collector goes down and it touches this cloud. So when it touches the cloud right now, we are going to detect the collision, and this game object or this cloud that has been touched with our cloud collector is going to be this game object here in the parameter. So it's going to be the target. So we can utilize this and we can say if target.tag, so if the tag of this game object is equal to cloud, or we can say if target.tag is equal to deadly. And we are going to create these two tags, and what we are going to do with, well, the game object, if we touch a game object that has a tag cloud or tag deadly, we are simply going to say target.gameObject set active false. What this actually means here is that we are going to simply deactivate the game object in the scene. And to paint the picture what that actually means, if I take my player now, and we see here this is our gameplay, and if I run the game we have the player. If I take the player, we see that we have this checkbox in the inspector panel near this cube and the player's name. If I uncheck it, we are not going to see the player anymore, which we simply saw now. If I check it again, we see the player. If I uncheck it, we don't see the player again. This is called setting the game object to be active or not active in the scene. If the game object is not active, it will not be in the game, practically like the game object is not in the game. It will not detect collision, the script that's attached on that game object will not execute, so on and so forth. And that's why we are simply doing that here in our script. So if we touch a cloud or a deadly game object, then we are going to deactivate that or deactivate that game object. Now, in order to create these tags, we need to go here, and I'm going to select the cloud, and under the tag here, I'm going to click on add tag, and here I'm going to add a tag cloud, so cloud.clud, and the other one is deadly. And let me just go here in our prefabs, in our cloud prefabs, the first three clouds, so cloud 1, 2, and 3, we are going to tag them, so select the tag, and again, in order to add a tag, select here, on this drop down list to select a tag, and then click on add tag, and then here you can click on the plus sign and then add tags that you want to add. And now select all three of them, so cloud 1, 2, and 3, and go under tag and tag them with cloud. And our dark cloud is going to be tagged deadly because he is going to kill our player if the player touches our tag. So this is for the tagging of our game objects. Now we are going to deal with our cloud spawner. So simply select the cloud spawner, double click it, and Mana Develop will open it here. Now for our cloud spawner, we need a couple of variables. So first here, I'm going to create a serialized field, which is going to be a private game object array, which are going to be our clouds. And I've set it to be serialized and private because I don't want other classes to access this variable, but I do want it to be visible in the inspector. So here, because of that, I've typed serialized field, because now if I go and select the cloud spawner, we have this clouds array, which I can set the size for example, I don't know, 6 or 1, or return it back to 0, because we are going to add our clouds here in the scene, and then we are going to drag them here in this clouds array, which we will see a little bit later. And now we also need, so we have here private game object clouds. We also need a private float, which is going to be distance, so distance between clouds, which is going to be equal to 3. And this is going to be the distance on the y-axis between our clouds, because if I position the first cloud for the y position, I'm saying this, so if I position the first cloud at 0 for the y position, then I want to have a little bit of distance between them. So for example, if I take my clouds, if I position the first cloud here, and I need to set it up like this and hit apply, and for this one, well, it hit apply it's not important. I can use this cloud as an example because we are going to remove him from the scene anyway. So if I take this cloud and position it here, I need a little bit of space between the other clouds. So I cannot position the other cloud right here because then our player will not be able to stand on him. So we need a little bit of space like this, for example, and then our player can stand on the other cloud. And that's why this variable is useful, so the distance between the clouds. And we can always alter it if the distance is long or short. We can simply modify this number. Next, we also need a private float, which is going to be min x and max x. What we are going to do with these two variables, well, we are going to use them in order to position our clouds. So here we have this camera. So we see that these white lines are camera bonds. So this white line and this white line. When we position our clouds, we don't want them to go outside of our camera on the left side. So we don't want to position our cloud here. The maximum where we want to position it is here. The same way for our x-axis or the bound on the positive side. We are not going to allow our cloud to be positioned like this. The maximum that we are going to allow it is to be positioned here. And for that, we are going to use these variables minimum and maximum x in order to determine the maximum, which is on the left, or the right side, excuse me, and the minimum, which is on the left side. So these variables are for that. We are also going to have a private float, last cloud, so last cloud position y. This is going to give us the information of the last cloud's y position. So when we start the game, we are going to have initially around 8 clouds. And let's say, for example, the last cloud is positioned here. And we're going to take his y-axis or his y position and store it in this variable in order to know the last position of the last cloud. Because when we run the game and our cloud spawner, which we see here, touches the cloud, we are going to compare the last position y, so this variable, with the targets. We are also going to use our onTrigger enter, and we are going to get the target's position y and compare it with this position. If they are equal, then that means that our cloud spawner has touched the last cloud and we need to spawn new clouds, because otherwise we are going to be left out of clouds and our player will not be able to stand anywhere, which we are also going to see a little bit later, but I'm explaining that on the go. Here we are also going to have a private game object array, which is going to be our collectibles. So collectibles, and we are going to create them a little bit later, and they are also going to be a serialized field because we want to add them in our game manually or through the inspector panel. We are also going to have here a private float, which is going to be control x. And we are going to see a little bit later why we are going to use this variable in order to control the x position of our clouds, because we want to randomize their position. So for example, if I create the cloud and position them here, I want to create this other cloud and position them here so that our player can jump on this cloud, then on this cloud, so on and so forth. I don't want to position, for example, this cloud here, and then the second cloud will be positioned here. No, I don't want that. So I want to position one here, the other one here, the third one here, so on and so forth, so that our player can jump on this one, then the other one, then the other one, and so on. And lastly, what we are going to have here is a private game object, which is going to be our player. And we are going to get the player stored in this variable because when we start the game, when we position all of the clouds, so for example, this cloud is positioned here, this cloud is positioned here, and we have other clouds down there. We also need to get the player, which we see here in the game. So we need to get the player and position him on top of this cloud. So this is how our game is going to initially start. Our player is going to stand on one of the clouds. And for that, I need to have a reference to the player. And I'm going to get him in our start or awake function later on. And then I'm going to simply position him above the first cloud, which we are going to see a little bit later. So in this video, or this is enough for this video, just setting up our cloud spawner, we have explained so much, and in the next video we are going to start to program our cloud spawner.